Our top story this half hour, keeping America safe. President Donald Trump will seek an additional $54 billion in spending for the Department of Defense tonight when he makes his speech in front of Congress. Yesterday, the commander-in-chief hinted at his plans for the military budget before he addresses a joint session of Congress tonight.
It will include a historic increase in defense spending to rebuild the depleted military of the United States of America at a time we most need it. We must ensure that our courageous servicemen and women have the tools they need to deter war, and when called upon to fight in our name, only do one thing: win. We have to win. We have to start winning wars again.
We want to bring in Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin. And Secretary Shulkin, it is great to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you. It's
Welcome.
Great to be here.
You know, you have so many accolades to discuss. You are the sole Obama appointee in this administration. You were confirmed unanimously.
Yes.
People were saying, "Oh, this is an easy one," and you have been at the Veterans Affairs, even though the president has said how bad the VA has been. He kept somebody who was there at the VA. So you've got a great legacy as you come into this job. What are you expecting to hear from the president tonight?
Well, what I expect to hear is the strong support for making sure that we're caring for our men and women who have served our country. There's a commitment there, and that 100-0 vote from the U.S. Congress, I think, is not so much about me. It's really the country's commitment to making sure that we do everything that we can to deliver on our promise to our veterans.
Tell me one of the biggest issues and how do you fix it, and that is restoring trust and accountability at the VA. What is your solution to this?
Well, I think we all know that in the wait time crisis in April 2014, we did let the country down. We did let our veterans down. And it's much easier to lose trust than it is to gain it back. And so we are slowly gaining that trust back, and we're seeing that happen as we really begin to deliver and transform the VA to be a system that we're all proud of once again.
Why? Why were those wait times such a problem? How did that happen?
Well, I think that it was really two things. One is it was our lack of willingness to ask for the resources that we needed to care for our country's veterans, and we just fell behind. And secondly, it was a culture in the VA of not willing to come forward and talk about what was really happening, to hide those long wait times. And frankly, no system is going to be able to regain trust if it isn't transparent and if it isn't accountable.
You know, you have said in the past, look, if a veteran wants to go to a private medical provider, then do it. People saw that and said, well, wait a second, is he for privatization? Is he going to change something? What's your stance on that?
Well, you know, I came from the private sector, so when I entered the Veterans Affairs, I was open to trying to see whether it made sense to privatize the VA. And I quickly learned that the VA is a unique national resource, that we can't simply just let veterans get all of their care in the private sector, that they'd be losing a lot of very, very valuable services that are important to caring for our men and women. So I believe the solution is an integration of what's really great and best about the VA, as well as what's better and best about the private sector. Our servicemen and women deserve the very best of what both these systems can give them.
Because you're from the private sector, you have an opinion on private sector people running agencies. What do you think about the fact that the president has surrounded himself with business people?
Well, I think what we need in government is more best practices of business. I think we need to take what's working in the private sector and make sure that government can function that way. And when government gets bloated, full of regulations and red tape, it doesn't serve people well. So I think having these private sector people in the government makes a lot of sense.
We've got this new Fox News poll out, and it shows that voters have more faith in the military compared to other national institutions. 96% of those surveyed said that they have a great deal or some confidence in the military. Secretary Shulkin, last week you reportedly promised major changes were coming to the Department of Veterans Affairs. What can our servicemen and women expect?
Well, first of all, that poll makes sense to me. When I have the privilege of spending time with our men and women in uniform, you can't help but feel proud. These are courageous, patriotic Americans that really should give confidence in the country, and I feel confident with them. I think the changes that we need are to make VA accountable, to essentially be open and transparent about what's going on and to give more choice so that people can get the very best of care wherever they need to get it.
We are expecting the president tonight to propose $54 billion increased spending on the military. How do you feel about that? Where do you think the money ought to go? Because when we talk about the military right now, when we speak to veterans, they all tell us they need more resources.
Yeah, what I know from history, and I know the president appreciates this, when we make a decision to send our men and women off to protect us and to fight for our country, that's a lifetime commitment. And so when you create the spending at the very beginning in the Defense Department, you need to have that commitment all the way through for veterans, because we are committed to our veterans for life.
So where would you, can you identify areas that you believe are absolutely needed in terms of extra spend?
Well, we have projections that show what the need is going to be. We know that our men and women coming back from our most recent conflicts are coming back with not only physical injuries, but also the invisible injuries of war. And sometimes it takes additional resources to be able to make sure that we're treating those invisible wounds.
That's a great point, and that's something that I think the president actually has mentioned as well. How do you convince someone who's watching you now, at the leader at the VA, but you're an insider, and someone who says, look, this is broken, we need an outsider to come in and fix it? How do you convince them that, no, you know this, and that's why you are the best man to lead this?
Well, look, it's not my job to convince people. I want people to watch our results. We are committed to fixing this. We know we have to do better, and we are going to do better. I've been in government now about 18 months. That's long enough to understand how the system works and where the problems are. And my discussions with the president have been that we have to make these changes quickly, and being able to know where the problems are is going to allow us to do that as quick as we need to do it.
Meanwhile, President Bush visited MacDill Air Force Base in Florida yesterday. He signed copies of his new book, Honoring Veterans. Last night, the former commander-in-chief sat down for an interview with Sean Hannity and talked about his interactions with military families. Watch this.
I'm kind of a crier, and when a mom hugs me and, talks about her son, it it affected me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, and this is hard for many people to understand, but when you go to Walter Reed and a soldier looks at you who's lost his leg and says, I'd do it again. Or you ride mountain bikes with these troops that some of whom lost a leg who went back into combat. Or a mother whose son lost their life and said, I just want you to know my son died doing what he wanted to do. It lifts your spirit.
Your reaction, Secretary?
Well, I recently had a chance to visit with President Bush at his library in Dallas, and I have a great deal of respect. I think that the president, like many of us, after you spend time with the men and women that serve our country, it impacts you. And he truly feels a commitment to these men and women, and his book and his paintings and his life commitment now to those men and women is really inspiring to me.
When you look at today's military, the modern military, versus what we saw just 10 years ago, how do you make a distinction? What's different today, and what are the new realities that require a different take?
Well, I think the big difference is that so many people that are injured on the battlefield now survive, and years ago these would have been injuries that would have killed them. So we're seeing people come back with absolutely devastating and complex types of injuries that now we are responsible for making sure that we provide them with the best care. And that complexity has really changed the VA because we need to respond to those injuries.
How do you respond effectively? Is it a money issue? What is it that you need in terms of new tools?
Well, I think it's in part a money issue, but that really isn't the big problem. Fortunately, this president has made the commitment to support our veterans with the resources we need. We also have to be changing. We have to be looking for new and better ways to ensure that we are managing and treating the conditions that are coming back. This is new territory, and that's why VA not only provides care but does research. Our research, which is the largest research dedicated to veterans, is helping us improve our care every day.
So when you hear the conversation taking place right now, for example, about Obamacare, what's your takeaway there, knowing what you've seen at the VA in terms of health care?
Well, I think that what we know about the VA is providing a comprehensive system of care that is providing not only physical treatment, but the psychological, social, economic treatment really is what people need to have well-being in their life. And I think this comprehensive system of care has really been impactful and important for our country's veterans.
Are you looking toward anything specific that you'd like to hear from the president tonight in that regard?
Well, I speak to the president. The president is absolutely committed not only to a strong country and to security, but also to making sure that we honor our commitment when we ask people to serve their country, that is the lifetime commitment that the country's prepared to follow through on.
Secretary, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your time. Secretary David Shulkin there. Fox Business Network is taking you live to the president's address tonight to a joint session of Congress. It kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern. We've got analysis throughout the program. And Mornings with Maria will be live tomorrow morning right here in Washington, D.C. for in-depth analysis after we hear the president's address tonight. We'll take a short break. We're live from Washington, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.